Well, strap in for another rant, folks. This time not at the players. I know some of you might be expecting one at the players after a performance where the offence essentially offered nothing, especially in the second half once again. But today's rant is going to be completely aimed at Andre Mariner because he has essentially cost us the game and has allowed us to now be in a position where our top four position is in serious jeopardy because we've not managed to get the draw in that game. Now, obviously, the penalty was a penalty. There's no debating that. Shaw stuck his hand out in the air and slapped the ball away. That is a penalty, and that's disappointing for two reasons. One, because I genuinely think Luke Shaw was man of the match in that game. For 95 and a half minutes, he didn't make a single mistake and was defensively immense, as he has been in all of the games recently. And obviously, he's given that penalty away by sheer stupidity. But of course, secondly, it has now meant that Brighton have won the game. They now move into the best position to challenge us for the top four, and it leaves us in a very precarious position going into a game away at West Ham at the weekend with the chasing pack to come. And look, I'll quickly touch on the players. Like I say, I thought, again, defensively, we were absolutely brilliant. Wan-Bissaka kept Mitoma quiet all game. Lindelof and Shaw, as we just said, were absolutely fantastic. Dalot, again, not the best, but he was shuffling them in towards Shaw, Lindelof and Casemiro. So like I say, defensively we're fine, other than that one stupid mistake from Luke Shaw, from a situation that should never have been created, as we'll get to in the moment. Offensively, though, once again, we were absolutely shambolic, but that was, obviously that's not the plan to be shambolic, but the plan was set out in stone from the start. We came for a draw, we played for a draw, and we were just looking to nick opportunities on the counter-attack. Something that we did do pretty well in the first half without any success in front of goal, but not something we did particularly well second half. And once again, that comes down to just a combination of sloppy passes, be it from the midfield or the fullbacks into the forwards, or the forwards once again being too selfish. And unfortunately, I'm going to be hypercritical of Rashford and Antony again for this. I felt really sorry for Martial in the first half. He just couldn't get on the ball because every single time Rashford or Antony got it, they just cut inside and shot. And it's just so frustrating. Considering the fact we're trying to allure the likes of Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen, what are they going to be thinking seeing our wide players not giving them the service? You know, especially one like Osimhen, where Kvaratskhelia is the most assists in the Serie A this season because he is providing on a regular occasion for Osimhen. If he's looking at Rashford and Antony just cutting inside and shooting, he's going to be thinking, well, I don't want to play for them. They're not going to give me the opportunities I need to score goals. And that was the real problem that we had in the first half, and then even more in the second half. Like I say, we just didn't offer anything in the second half. Once again, the substitutions made no impact. I was a bit curious why it took so long to make the substitutions, but given how little impact they made, I can understand why. Obviously, Fred was incredibly sloppy on the ball, as he always is, but I actually thought he did all right in the job that he was given. He was obviously given the job of handling McAllister, something that I thought he did very well defensively, but as always with Fred, if you're going to play him, you lose a creative player on the field, and I just think that's kind of what happened. And actually taking him off and putting Sabitzer on is what allowed Brighton to then gain a little bit more control in midfield, because the likes of McAllister, Caicedo and Ciso were getting on the ball a lot easier because Fred was no longer in the midfield doing that job. Other than that, there isn't a lot to say about the actual player performance. Like I say, we went in there with a game plan, and for 95 and a half minutes, we executed it perfectly until that Luke Shaw handball. Now we're going to talk about the refereeing, and I'm going to go absolutely off on one in here because Andre Mariner, in particularly, should not be refereeing at this level. Every single time he has been involved in a Manchester United game this season, it has gone wrong. All of the games where we've had bust-ups, he has been involved as the referee. When Casemiro got sent off against Crystal Palace, he was the VAR official that told the on-field referee to go over and only showed him that super slow-mo of him grabbing him from behind, even though he was grabbing only his collar. something that we saw Jack Grealish doing at the weekend and in midweek last week, and he wasn't sent off for either. He was also the VAR official for the Casemiro challenge against Southampton, which has been established should not have been a red card due to the fact that he has bounced off the ball rather than cleanly going over it. And then today, he just had no control over this football match. And that is why it got so rowdy in that second half. He wasn't booking players for making serious tackles. Half the time, he wasn't even giving fouls for things like Anthony got clotheslined prior to when he kicked out. But situations like that only arise because Andre Mariner is not controlling the football game. He's letting too much go. He's letting easy things not be given. It was just such a backwards refereeing performance, and it just allowed the game to disintegrate into sheer chaos with about 15-20 minutes to go with the whole Anthony incident, where it looked like Brighton could have had a penalty at one end, then it looked like Man United could have had a penalty at the other end, then Anthony got clotheslined, and then obviously it all boiled over with him kicking out. And if I'm being honest, Anthony probably could have been sent off for that, and I also think Casemiro could have been sent off for a second yellow card for constantly going to ground and not getting the ball on that second occasion that he did. Webster potentially could have been sent off as well for his challenge on Bruno Fernandes, but recent decisions around tackles around the ankle, especially the one like Oliver Skip on Luis Diaz, I'm not expecting a red card for Webster. But again, you let enough of those challenges go and you lose control of the football match. And that is exactly what Andre Mariner allowed to happen. And I'm honest, if Brighton didn't get a late winner, I think Brighton would be pretty annoyed that we've not had at least one or two players sent off today. And then to sum up what was a horrendous refereeing performance to the likes, like I say, that I just don't think he's good enough to be at this level. He then gives a free kick with 1 minute to go for Luke Shaw doing absolutely nothing. And Enciso, who had been throwing himself to the floor on multiple occasions, a lot of players were doing it, not just him. Mitoma was throwing himself to the floor, Rashford was throwing himself to the floor, Anthony was doing it, Sancho when he came on, Bruno was doing his usual rolling around, Buenanotta was throwing himself to the floor, but Enciso in particular for Brighton was doing it all game. And Luke Shaw does nothing wrong. Enciso flicks it over his head, he knows he's lost it, Shaw turns in his way, but he's just turning to get the ball, and Enciso just flings his arms in the air, holds his face, and goes to the floor, and the referee gives the free kick. He then has the audacity to boot Luke Shaw as well. From the free kick, they get the corner. From the corner, they get the handball and the penalty, which results in Brighton winning the game. And that all comes from Andre Mariner's poor refereeing. Now, again, a precedent has to be set during the game for consistency to reign. If he's going to book players for going to ground, that is fine. But if you're going to give a foul by Luke Shaw for that challenge on Enciso, then Mitoma should have had a penalty, Rashford should have had a penalty, Fred definitely should have had a penalty, a chance or a penalty claim that wasn't even showed on TV replays throughout the game or at half-time. And obviously I've come straight here at full-time, so I'm not going to see if they've done it after the game. But the challenge on Fred wasn't even shown as a TV replay. Neither was the challenge on Mitoma in the second half because of all the chaos that came after it with the whole Anthony incident. But that could have been a penalty as well. But this is what I'm saying. If all of those decisions are not penalties, you have set a precedent that challenges with your arms out that don't have much contact. And again, let's talk about the Anthony one where he literally gets double clotheslined by two players. If that is not a foul, at the very end of the game, to give a foul, to give Brighton a chance, I would argue is borderline biased and allowing Brighton intentionally to have a chance to win the game. Because you have set that precedent during the game that we're not giving fouls for arm across challenges. So that has really riled me up. And like I say, the penalty is a penalty. He has stuck his hand in the air and he slapped it away. It's a penalty. There is no getting around that. But the whole situation in which the penalty has been created is an absolute farce. And I am absolutely livid that that is what this game has come down to. Don't get me wrong, Brighton had a lot of chances. They could have won the game in their own right. But due to our defensive brilliance, once again, that didn't happen. And obviously we had our own chances, especially in the first half, to win the game ourselves. I don't think it was fair to say Brighton deserved to win the game, because as many chances as they created, we were only 2 shots behind them, and one of those 2 shots behind was the penalty that they scored. So chances were even for both teams. Just the fact that Brighton had more possession does not mean they deserved to win the game, because as well as they attacked, we defended. So I'm not going to say that they deserve to win for that regard. I just believe that they have been gifted the win by an official that has cost us on multiple occasions this season. And I just think referees in this country need a complete overhaul. I spoke about Jared Gillett at the weekend. He's an Australian referee that came into the Premier League, and at the weekend against Aston Villa, in my opinion, gave the best refereeing performance I've seen in a Premier League game this season. We have gone from that to one of the worst refereeing performances I've seen in the Premier League ever. And it just shows the standard of refereeing in this country is not up to scratch. I've seen a lot of people complaining about different referees over the last few weeks. Anthony Taylor, Michael Oliver, Dave England. They're not up to it. The English officials are not up to it. So if we have the opportunity to bring in more officials from abroad, like Jared Gillett, the Premier League needs to be snapping their hands off to get them into this country to improve the standard of our refereeing, because it's affecting results up and down the league every single week at the moment. And that's all I've got to say on the matter. I know I don't normally do reactions like this. I normally talk a lot more about the players and the tactics. But like I said, I don't really think there was much more to say. We went in with a game plan, we executed it perfectly, and then threw it away with a dodgy handball at the end that should never have been created in the first place. And yeah, that's all I got to say. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments about everything I've said. I imagine the majority of the things will be around the decision making. Whether or not Casemiro and Antony should have been sent off, Andre Mariner be refereeing in this country, and also, of course, our prospects for the top 4. We have a very, very, very difficult away game against an in-form West Ham United this weekend. And if we don't win, if we even draw, I think we're then asking for an awful lot of trouble. Yes, Brighton have some very tough fixtures yet to come. They are obviously mathematically in the best position. I am convinced Liverpool will win every single game for the rest of this season, which means that we only have 5 points to play with right now. So we have got to start getting results fast. Not only that, as I keep mentioning, we've got a game against Man City coming up in the FA Cup final. And right now, off of the performances I've seen recently, we may get away with a 2 or 3-0 defeat if we defend as well as we've been defending, but the offence has gone to pieces in the last few weeks. I just don't know what is going on in our attack at the moment. They look so disjointed at the moment, and something needs to change very, very soon. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I will be back tomorrow morning with some more Premier League predictions. I'll see you then.